Everybody wants better government, and for years, a lot of folks have said that Orange County would be better if it had an ethics commission to keep a closer eye on politicians. Well, last month, they got it. Voters overwhelmingly approved the commission, and the supervisors promptly gave it a $500,000 budget. But does this really get to the problems with local government? Well, I've got just the people to ask. Citizen activist Bill Mitchell, voice of OC publisher Norberto Santana, and OC Register opinion editor Brian Calle. They're next on Inside OC. Inside OC is brought to you by 5 Point. 5 Point is an independent real estate development company with assets under management across California. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming.
Memorial Care is transforming the way healthcare is delivered, keeping our communities and businesses healthy by guiding them on the path to wellness with easily accessible hospitals, physician offices, and outpatient centers. Memorial Care, leading the way.
No such thing as a neighbor's veto.
Okay. Well, hi, I'm Rick Reiff, and welcome to Inside OC, and I'm talking about ethics in government with Bill Mitchell, Norberto Santana, and Brian Calle. So, Bill, the voters have spoken in Orange County by like 70%. They approved this ethics commission. What is this ethics commission about? What's it supposed to do?
Well, first, Orange County has been a leader in local reforms. We have the Tin Cup, which is the campaign finance ordinance. We have the strictest gift ban in the state of California. We have a lobbyist registration ordinance, and we have a code of ethics. But what we didn't have is a comprehensive way to monitor compliance and to have enforcement. So the Ethics Commission builds in monitoring, compliance, and enforcement. The other reason we needed it is the enforcement before was in the hands of a DA. We have a district attorney who doesn't do his job, and when he does it poorly.
So because we have a poor DA, we have to create this commission.
Apparently.
What happens when we get a head of the commission that's just as bad as the DA, according to you?
Well, the system is not, we're taking it out of the hands of one decision maker and creating a 5-person commission with an executive director.
What if we get a 5-person commission as bad as a really bad board of supervisors, and then a really bad executive director as bad as the DA? And I'm not saying our current board of supervisors and DA are really bad, but what if that happens? Do we create a new Uber?
Well, we already have a bad
commission?
DA, and so that's why we have an ethics commission. So you have the ability to remove commissioners, and the qualification, the bar for qualifications is very high.
Bill, give an example, just so the viewers understand. What might be something that the Ethics Commission would do? What's a problem
An
it might
unlawful
address?
contribution, a failure to disclose a contribution. That's the principal reason.
So it's political stuff, which means that politicians will try to target each other. But you're a lawyer, you never see, there's no teeth to that. What actually happens? You can file a complaint with the state, it goes up to the FPPC, and then it disappears. No one actually ends up going to jail for any of this kind of nonsense.
Well, no, we don't want anybody to go to jail for these kinds of. The Ethics Commission is not a criminal body. If there was a crime committed, that gets referred to the Attorney General, to the DA. What we're looking at is local ordinances and compliance of local ordinances, not criminal behavior. And the whole purpose of this is to correct issues of failure to disclose, unlawful contributions, and to try to do it first remedially, second in a confidential manner, to give candidates an opportunity. You know, Orange County for the last 30 years has had a woman named Shirley Grindle basically work for free, right? And has helped build a really good system of compliance. And what we're doing is institutionalizing that monitoring and compliance, plus adding some other features.
So, Norberto, my question is, does this Ethics Commission really address the problems that the county has? Because as Brian said, it's political stuff. My gosh, there's already a DA, which I understand Bill doesn't think much of, but a DA, we've got, the State Fair Practices Board. There's lots of things to monitor this. I'm wondering, all right, this is nice maybe, Orange County's ahead of the curve, but is this addressing the problems of Orange County?
Well, the problems of Orange County are incredibly varied. So one thing in particular never addresses everything. But Bill is correct. We have a district attorney that when it comes to, come up to bat on campaign finance violations, just does not do that part of his job. That's part of the elite of Orange County, has elected a DA that doesn't want him going after political regulation. That's fine. The voters have said, we'll take that job. A lot of issues that happens with politics. Look, our former sheriff ended up being indicted by the feds. Some of it was campaign finance stuff that had he corrected in the beginning with Shirley, and she said this a million times, he might not have ended up where he was. Many problems that are small end up becoming very big. Politicians that are not corrected early on get used to not being corrected. When you have that situation, it lends to bigger problems. So this is a way to begin some sort of regulation. Where it goes, that's the big question.
Okay. Clearly, the voters want it, and the voters want more transparency. They want more disclosure. Another example of that was also on this ballot in June, and that was this fiscal impact cost disclosure, which actually even got more votes in the ethics committee, 86% approval. Norberto, what is this impact disclosure about?
Well, let's use the very ethics commission that I just said was a good thing as a perfect example of why you should have disclosure of costs, because supervisors very adeptly did not want to include the cost of this, of what it would cost to have an ethics commission. It's probably somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. They didn't want to put that on the ballot because that would potentially hurt some votes. So what they did was to say, we don't know what the fiscal impact of this will be. Well, Supervisor Michelle Steele correctly put another ballot initiative on to say, let's stop doing things. Let's stop as politicians, conservative politicians, voting for things that we don't know how much they cost. So now you have a measure up, and I know that Auditor Controller Eric Woolery is licking his chops over this one, that he now gets to whatever the supervisors want to put on the ballot. From now on, we'll go to the office of the Auditor Controller, and that person will come up with a cost for it.
Right. Now, it'll be an estimate, and people may dispute whether the estimate of the cost is good or not. But as you said to Michelle Steele, she said this is going to cost $500,000 to $1 million. The other supervisors are saying, oh, it's not going to cost that. It's not going to be full-time. As soon as it passes, Bill, you love this, they make it full-time, and it's immediately over $500,000. So she was right. She was right. And so... Anyway, where's this, in the state, they already have this, Brian. When you vote, voters know that when you vote on a state issue, a bond measure or something, any proposal, it tells you what the estimated cost is. So now in the county level, if you're going to vote on a county ballot issue, you'll get some estimate of what the cost is.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea. And I actually think the Ethics Commission was a good idea, too. I just like to tease Bill. But my issue with things like the fiscal impact report, and much like at the state level, is all of the estimates are tantamount most of the time to lies. The biggest lie of all, high-speed rail. It was going to cost this much. Now it costs this much. And we actually still don't know the last cost. So when I'm thinking about how you make true reforms, or you have a real impact and you give voters real information, these types of fiscal impact reports should actually have teeth to them. So if they're above estimate or above budget, the project goes away.
Yeah.
That would be my preference. Be honest with the numbers, be honest with the voters, and let us make an informed decision, not a decision based on fake information because you politically want something to happen.
Right. And your Orange County Register did a story on this ballot measure where it said, but other county leaders thought the proposed change might make it more difficult to get some types of local initiatives passed. And I'm thinking, that's just the point.
That's what we want.
So what do you think, Bill? Citizen activist, concerned citizen. By the way, Shirley Grindle certainly deserves the shout out you gave her, but you too have worked a long time for better government and transparent government in Orange County. But what do you think? Do you like this fiscal impact
Absolutely.
thing?
I mean, Michelle Steele put it on there to kind of throw a sharp elbow at our ethics reform, but it's a good reform. I say no reason why, if you're asking the voters to adopt something, to put a price tag on it.
Yeah. Okay, Norberto, a lot of talk lately, too, about term limits.
Right.
And that maybe it's time for the county supervisors to do away with term limits. And, right now, what do? You serve 8 years and you've got to move on.
Right.
Or if you're Todd Spitzer, you can come back again.
Right.
Can you go off one and then come back?
Exactly.
Right, okay.
Exactly.
But then you got to cool your heels for 2 years, 4 years, So
Right.
is this, what do you think?
I mean, again, it's deck chairs. It's arranging little things that one little fix will get at the point, which is our politicians don't do their job. They do not show up. In fact, at the County Board of Supervisors, just ask for their calendars and they won't give them to you because they don't want you to know where they're at, which is not at the office.
Fundraiser.
So,
Yeah, in
they're
fact,
a fundraiser. They're doing everything other than their job.
Norberto, I want to point out you have just written a viewpoint on Voice of OC. This is my Norberto's mad as hell and not going to take it anymore article. Okay, I mean he's going on, and you're addressing some of this stuff, and he goes, this is county government, all fluff all the time. Talking about what are the supervisors talking about? They're talking about crime victim monuments, statues to a Vietnamese general, a Mexican hero, and Ronald Reagan. Dog beach area, pet events, bike lane loop. Meanwhile, what are they not addressing? They're not addressing homelessness, civilian oversight, infrastructure spending, social services, healthcare.
Yeah, I just want to pick up his point of view is great. The challenge is the Board of Supervisors do not have a lot of discretion in their budget. So you have 5 people with staffs full-time that actually can implement very little. Most of their budget's locked into public protection and funding state programs and managing state programs. You know, later on we're going to talk about Marion Bergeson, great leader in this county.
Right.
One of her ideas 22 years ago was to get rid of the board and have a county mayor. You have one person, you have accountability, you save money, and you just say, hey, you, Bob, Tina, whoever that is, you're in charge. If you don't do a good job, you're out. Instead of having 5 kind of nameless people.
Or you can create a commission to oversee the mayor if the mayor's not doing a good job.
Right.
I think that's called the voters.
Well, and I actually do agree with both of the points being made. I think that not just in the county of Orange, but also in the various cities, you see this, particularly in Anaheim, and you see this in Santa Ana to some extent. You see this in Irvine, the Big Four, Huntington Beach, the Big Four cities in Orange County, where you have city councils oftentimes that are dysfunctional or deadlocked. And the mayor is a ceremonial position and has no real authority. The people in the community or in the city government that actually have the power are the staff. So for example, the city manager really makes the decisions and runs the place. And even if the city council wants something done, they can block, stall, or do what they want. So what I would like to see happen, not just at the county level, but probably throughout cities in Orange County, especially these bigger cities, is a strong mayor model where the mayor is actually the CEO of the city and has authority to hire, fire, and to institute policies, because then you can hold someone directly accountable.
Don't we have that in Santana, for example?
No, you have a mayor, but that mayor doesn't have control of the budget. Nope. I mean, again, you have constantly in government.
Right, they have a city manager.
Yeah,
there.
It's always this thing of the supervisors.
It's an honorary title.
Right, and the thing is, too, the supervisors, there's a lot of, even though most of what you're looking at is federal and state mandates that you're implementing, how you implement things, though, says a lot. Yeah. I've never seen the Board of Supervisors have a hearing about how they do homelessness, how they do medical care, how they do law enforcement, what are we doing with training, what's going on with the jails these days. Yeah. These guys don't ask they never lift the hood under the car and ask any questions.
You know, it is fascinating, the power of the city managers. You very seldom hear about them. But Brian,
and they're paid real well.
God bless Terry Sforza, you know,
that's right.
The watchdog.
Terry does a great job.
If there's no other reason besides Brian to read the Orange County Register, it's to read Terry Sforza's watchdog. Mm-hmm. And one of the things she's been watching are the city managers. Yeah. And Norberto, some attention now, you do it too, some attention on these city managers. It's almost like the best paid city managers, some of them are in the smallest communities, and they're pulling in, $300,000, $400,000 a year, and very little attention to these guys. Mostly guys, if not all guys.
Yeah. And almost
actually, I can't even point out one woman in Orange County who's a city manager.
And it is, again, your local government has become largely a police state, where a lot of it is going to police and fire, and your city manager's making decisions with the few dollars that are left. I mean, we always talk about pension issues, but a large part of our pension issue is a public safety funding problem, really. And so you have these city managers that have tons of things that they're in charge to do, but the reality of it is they just have to keep 3 council members happy. And that means throwing lots of bread, lots of circus, lots of pet events. And if you're a city manager, you can keep 3 votes, you can do pretty much whatever you want to do. And that's the reality of our local government.
Isn't there like a strong city managers association or something? I mean, these guys, if you look around the country, it's almost like they're all in the same playbook. They're all playing from the same playbook, the benefits, the way things are structured. They must talk to each other. And
they do, and they have associations. I mean, I think that, I don't want to demonize city managers as a whole. I actually think in Orange County we have some phenomenal city managers. Doug Schockhevitz down in Dana Point, I think, is very good. There are others who I think are very good.
And they want to stay out of the controversy.
They
right?
do, but the real issue is that they're unelected, right? And so the people who are elected and held most accountable for decisions can't really make decisions or really truly lead. They have to get the buy-in from two other colleagues, as Norberto says, on their council, and then basically strong arm a city manager to do exactly what they want. And so my attitude is that's not a good way of governance. We need to make sure that the person that we elect is the person who's also accountable, is the person who's also making the decisions. And that's my issue.
Yeah, Bill, do you think one of the problems is the city managers do not want to get into politics? They've got nice jobs and they're supposed to run the cities, and so they don't want to get into politics. And the politicians don't really want to have to get, as Norberto said, into the business of running a city. They'd rather, do their dog parks and things like that.
There's no question. What Norberto said is absolutely correct. The city manager basically's job is to keep 3 votes. They do.
You mean the 3 votes on the council?
The 3 votes
out of
on
5.
3 out of 5. They have a lucrative job. I mean, how could you not like working in Orange County, making $350,000, $400,000? Do basically run the place as you would like, keep 3 people happy, and stay out of the limelight. It's a wonderful life.
Yeah. Norberto, you brought up, and I'm so glad you did, you brought up pensions. You mentioned pensions. Right. And I noticed in that litany of things that you were mad as hell about and weren't going to take anymore, you didn't mention pensions. You mentioned health care, some other things. And I'm assuming that was an oversight on your part. That pensions are a big deal.
I dealt with public safety.
Yeah.
I dealt with
so
public
Bill,
safety.
tell me, to me, when we're talking about all of these structures, and whether it's city manager, strong mayor, oversight commissions and all this, let's look at the dynamics of what goes on in government. And I would argue that public employee unions are the single most powerful interest group in local government. They control the local politicians, who therefore are not addressing the problems that, God bless Terry Sforza, writes about frequently in the Register and a lot of other people talk about, which is this growing unsustainable pension debt, now in billions of dollars. And this is a tax on future generations of taxpayers, of citizens who are not going to be able to pay these obligations to public employees. And what we need to do is move the 401ks going forward, but it's not happening.
What you've had is a quiet conspiracy between public employee unions, elected officials, to lawfully loot local treasuries.
You said it much more succinctly and even more dramatically than I did.
But
want to write a column for me?
Yeah, but it's an enormous problem, and until we tackle that, they're overcompensated, they allow for overtime that's ridiculous, and they have benefits that nobody in the private sector has. We're going to have a burden that Californians are not going to be able to afford.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, what you're talking about, though, everything there is public safety. Again, if you look at this honestly, public safety is cops and firefighters. The other massive infrastructure, if public employee unions ran the government, you'd be spending a ton more on social services and health care. But what you have is a cabal of council, city manager, makes a deal with the police chief. Look what happened in Costa Mesa when Jim Righeimer and Steve Menzinger started asking questions about the police compensation packages. Righeimer is followed home by a PI and pulled out on his front lawn and had to take a DUI exam where he was only drinking a Pepsi. But in general, this is the pension issue you have. And not one of our Republican friends will stand up and say anything about where the real pension liabilities come from.
Well, there was a member of the Board of Supervisors, John Morlock, who did talk about it, and now he's in Sacramento as a state senator still talking about it.
The Republicans will talk about some pensions. They don't talk about all the pensions. The Democrats won't talk about any of the pensions.
Fair enough.
So let's call a
Well, yeah,
spade a
and
spade.
the safety forces, and I will tell you, I've always subscribed that the safety forces, as much as we value their work and it's important work, are overcompensated with some of the things going on with police forces lately and what they have to put up with, and cops getting killed in Dallas and all that. Sometimes I'm beginning to think, wow, maybe they are worth the amounts
and cops
that we're
killing
paying.
people who don't deserve to die too.
But you have to have government that does other things, because you can't just take a police officer and put them into unsustainable situations and also ask them to keep things calm.
Yeah. I think we are asking. I do think we're asking the police nowadays to do too much. They're supposed to be keeping the peace. They're not social workers, and we expect them to be.
I don't think we're asking too much of the police that patrol Mission Viejo, Laguna Niguel, Laguna Beach.
Right.
I think those guys have a pretty good job, in my opinion.
They do. I mean, the beach cities, though, have their own challenges.
Brian, what's going to happen with the pensions? Everybody talks about it. We're talking about it. We're outraged. I mean, it seems like it's so obvious that at some point, public employees are going to have a 401k just like everybody else, and not these promised benefits. Now, what they've already earned, we have to pay that. But going forward, I see no political will.
No, I mean, I think there's a couple problems, right? Jerry Brown passed quote unquote pension reform. So people are like, oh, look, we did pension reform, it's done. And it wasn't really substantive enough to really address the underlying issues that we face in the pension system. I also think that Republicans and reformers who have tried to approach this particular issue have gone about it the completely wrong way with really terrible rhetoric. I think one thing that should happen is you should say, you know what, people who are already in the system, people who are already earning their pension, we're just going to have to eat it and live with it. But anyone who's hired from today forward is out of the system. And I think that's a reasonable, moderate policy that you can sell and negotiate with unions to ensure that they get other things that they're happy with. But no one's leading the charge on this.
You think you can sell it, Bill?
Oh, I can't sell it. I can sell it to the voters. I can't sell it for the state
and maybe
legislature.
that's what it'll take. Maybe it'll take
an initiative.
Maybe it'll take an initiative. Well, listen, you mentioned her a little earlier, Marion Bergeson, a very popular trailblazing politician in Orange County, has passed away at age 90. She got her start in politics on the Newport Mesa School Board. She then became a state assembly person, state senator, first woman elected to both of those positions. She was, of course, an OC supervisor. And she was the education secretary under Pete Wilson, state education secretary, and then became a member of the California Board of Education. Known as a moderate Republican, a great sense of humor. She joked that she brought perfume into the smoke-filled rooms, and she took up skydiving in her 80s. Our condolences to her husband, Garth, and the rest of the Bergeson family. Quite a legacy.
Yeah, I mean, probably the most respected, revered elected official in Orange County, deservedly so. Not just a pioneer, but I mean, she every basic that makes someone successful: integrity, hard work, a visionary. She was exemplary in each of those categories, and that's why she's respected across the board.
Norberto, she was a moderate Republican, and a moderate politician of any stripe nowadays is in a difficult position. Could Marion Bergeson get elected today to the Board of Supervisors?
Wow, who knows? She'd have a tough time. At the local level, though, again, you just had voters approve an ethics commission. So, if anything, whenever I saw her, she was always a reminder to me about policy over politics. She could talk very intelligently on transportation, education. That's what we absolutely miss today, is people who get into office and can just go and look at an engine and just deal with it on that alone. Whether that would work in today's electorate or not, I don't know anymore.
Brian, your thoughts, both on Marion and on her electability nowadays, and what does it say about where we are in politics?
I think she could certainly still be elected in Orange County. I actually think that we're starting to see very slowly more centrists, both Republicans and Democrats, be elected at the local level in particular communities. Particularly in the state legislature because of the jungle primary. I think that's been particularly helpful. I wish there were more politicians of the ilk of Marion Bergeson. In my job, we talk to and interview almost every single one of them, and it's the sophistication, the level of commitment, the depth, and the real passion for the job is lacking in Orange County. And so when she passed away, it was a reminder that we as voters need to do a better job of bringing the best and the brightest to the table. People who are willing to reach across the aisle and compromise with the other side. It might not be ideal, but it's best for the community. And I think that Marion embodies that.
Very good. And I'll close noting, too, that she was on the board of PBS SoCal. She was a huge supporter of public television and a good friend. And I think she was a friend to all of us, and we're going to miss her. Well, that's it for now. Thanks to my guests, Bill Mitchell, Norberto Santana, and Brian Calle. You can watch this show and past shows by going to pbssocal.org or rickreiff.com. You can also catch our shows and our post-show open mic chatter on YouTube. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again on Inside OC. Inside OC is brought to you by 5 Point. 5 Point is an independent real estate development company with assets under management across California. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming.
Memorial Care is transforming the way healthcare is delivered, keeping our communities and businesses healthy by guiding them on the path to wellness with easily accessible hospitals, physician offices, and outpatient centers. Memorial Care, leading the way.